here. I wear two different hats as I sit here on this panel because I am an advocacy representative with Rhode Island Teachers of English Language Learners on behalf of English Language Learners, but I'm also a teacher. So it's really hard to hear a lot of the criticism that gets lobbed our way because we're working our tails off in those classrooms every day. And there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that are just, it's beyond my control. One of the things that I've stated is you can't fail your kids at home and then expect me to create miracles in the classroom. I can't simply do it. I'll do the best that I can. I'll love those kids and I'll teach them the best that I can. But there's a lot more factors that go into a student being successful. And poverty is a factor to a degree, but the biggest factor is parental engagement. The biggest issue is having a parent that is questioning you when you walk in through that door. Where's your homework? Let me see your backpack. Let me look at your agenda. Let me communicate with your teacher. And I'm not, believe you me, I've taught English language learners for a long time, and I understand the language barriers that exist. I respect them. I speak other languages, and I've tried to make myself available to my students' parents as much as I possibly can. There's cultural differences, being recent immigrants into a new country, acclimation, just trying to keep a roof over your head in these ridiculous rent costs and utilities. I can't even imagine the immigrant of today. It wasn't when my parents came here in the 70s. The playing field was much better for them. Good manufacturing base. It was much easier, I believe, for the immigrants of yesteryear than it is for the immigrants of today. My biggest concern, being a representative of English language learners, is how unfair the test is, because it's not a content test for these kids. It is a literacy test. And for a child, or even an older student, I taught 6th grade, I'm doing 5th grade this year, and my 6th graders weren't impacted in the sense that, I'd have a student that would walk into my classroom and be sitting there just 2 or 3 days in. If they started before the NECAP test was administered, they had to take the mathematics portion, which was a complete joke. And I would say to my principal, this is not a math test, this is a literacy test. You have questions that take up 3/4 of the page. How was that student, and their only accommodation was, I could read them the question in English, great. Like that kid's, it's gonna make it any easier. Or they could have a word-to-word dictionary as an accommodation. Oh, fabulous. So it's gonna take me an hour to translate the question, and then I have to make sense of it all. And I'd see this every year. And that's what prompted me to get involved, because I was just tired of seeing the suffering that these kids were going through. And it's not fair to them. And the thing that bothers me even more so is how the first language is completely forgotten about. It's not valued, it's not taken into consideration, and in the global world that we live in, how can that be? How can you look at somebody when they're educated and value their bilingualism, but when they first come here, you're just completely discounting it? And that to me bothers me greatly, and especially when we look at the the achievement results of other countries. And by far, some of them blow us away. They're doing things in some of these classrooms in foreign countries that our kids have never done. And you're just, because they can't express that on a test, because their language proficiency is not there, you are just forgetting about it all. You're not even taking it into consideration. And the research has been there for years. RITELL should know it. They get paid a lot of money to know it, because that's what they like to spout is, in books, research. And it takes 7 to 10 years for English language learners to gain the academic language proficiency that they need to be successful. Not the basic interpersonal communication skills. That comes quickly. And that's a misconception for a lot of people. Oh, but I spoke to him in the hallway and he answered me, told me everything he did this weekend. That comes easy, that playground English. It's the academic English that is going to determine their success in schools. That takes years to come along. And yet, they're only excluded from the language arts portion of the test for 1 year. 1 year. When the research has been around for years that says it's just simply not enough. So on behalf of the 8,855 155 English language learners in this state. I am appalled at the fact that this continues. And no matter how many times we've sat in, on the board meetings and talked and been given our 2 minutes, under the glaring eyes of Chairwoman Mancuso, we're not being heard. And at stake is this subclass that we're going to create of students who came to this country, their parents brought them here for a better life, and they're being told, oh, you're just not good enough. But, you can stay in high school until you're 21, while a lot of their peers, are graduating, they're going to college. How unfair is that? And then the alternative assessments is even changing again for English language learners. And it's based on this language academic proficiency scale that nobody knows. We were just told this at our ELL LEP advisory board meeting last month. And RITE is still trying to formulate the calculations. None of the districts have been told exactly how this index works. And now access test, which is the special test that English language learners have to take every year, that's no longer counted as an alternative. And this was just told to us in October. And now there were juniors who retook NECAP who were told, listen, don't worry, concentrate on the math because you received the proper scores on the access test to pass NECAP. And now it's not counted anymore. So you can't keep changing the rules and then not let people know what the rules of the game are, which is what keeps happening. And it's frustrating to educators. It's frustrating to these poor kids, who think, all right, let me just concentrate on that. And then they're being told, oh, it's still not good enough. So I'm a little angry.